It has barely been a week since the Euros ended and already Todd Boehly's Chelsea seem intent on ruining my summer and killing any enthusiasm I had for the resumption of the Premier League season. It's so depressing, it's so painful, and annoyingly, it's so predictable. There were two news stories that came out of Chelsea in the last couple of days that sum up everything that is wrong with the club at the moment and why I despise these owners. One was that we've signed Caleb Wiley. Wiley? But from America. Would you call it soccer?
Would you call it garage? Would you call it garage?
Sadly, not that Wiley. This is an 18-year-old that previously nobody had ever heard of. I'm sure some hipster online now will be telling you how good he is, but let's face it, literally nobody actually has a clue. And frustratingly, we know how this story ends. We have seen this time and time again. We are signing players not for the furtherance of the first team. We are signing them purely for profit. This is how it's going to go for Caleb Wiley. Caleb Wiley will be loaned out for a few years and then sold on, having never played a first team game for the club. It's a pointless and futile exercise that we have seen repeated time and time and time again. However, the second story that came out of the club was far more damaging. We have decided not to take Trevoh Chalobah on our pre-season tour of America. From that manoeuvre, it is patently obvious what the club are trying to do. They are trying to force Trevoh Chalobah out the door. These two stories are a microcosm for Chelsea under Clearlake. We are now a club whose only strategy appears to be to stockpile youngsters from around the world and fund it through selling academy players. It really does seem to be our sole purpose and our sole ambition. Stockpile as many promising kids as possible, and how do we do that? How do we fund it? We allow our proven homegrown players to leave, and Trevoh Chalobah leaving is a sickener. Now look, my hands up, I like Trevoh Chalobah. I voted for him Player of the Year last year simply because I like him so much. And look, I concede I'm sentimental about Chalobah. I want him to stay. But even if you remove that sentimentality, this is still a ridiculous, disgraceful decision. What I'm about to say here isn't controversial and it isn't even debatable. Trevoh Chalobah is the best defender currently at Chelsea Football Club. Trevoh Chalobah elevates the entire defence, and there literally isn't one centre-half who is currently a Chelsea player who is a better centre-half than Trevoh Chalobah. How can we possibly have a situation where we are going to sell Chalobah and keep Axel Disasi? Now, when you think about how diabolically bad Chelsea were for the vast majority of last season, what changed in the final 13 games of the season? The answer is very simple. Trevoh Chalobah came into the side. Trevoh Chalobah started in 10 of the final 13 games of the season. We won 7, drew 3, lost none of the 10 games that he started. So when you think about how beatable Chelsea were last season, when Trevoh Chalobah starts, Chelsea don't get beat. In fact, the only game that we lost was the one that he didn't start in. And he came on as a sub in a game where we were 3-2 down and we ended up winning that game 4-3. But this is the player that we are going to sell. We're going to keep Disasi, we're going to keep Badiashile, but we are going to let go Trevoh Chalobah. And Chalobah's likely departure here means that he will become the 9th Cobham graduate to play for the first team to be sold under Clearlake. And if they get their way this summer, Conor Gallagher and Armando Broja could become 10 and 11. 11! That's a whole team of academy graduates sold in the 2 years since Clearlake took over. He would also be the 4th academy graduate that they have sold that has played over 50 games for Chelsea Football Club. They've already got rid of Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Callum Hudson-Odoi and Mason Mount. Now in that same period of time, we've signed 10 players who are under 20. We've spent over £200 million on them and they haven't played 50 games for Chelsea between them. It's almost like the plan that they have for the football club has nothing to do with football at all. It makes no footballing sense at all. It's a strategy that has seen Neil Bath, the academy director who brought so many academy players into the first team, quit. And it underlines why I despise this ownership so much. By all accounts, Trevoh Chalobah wanted to stay at Chelsea and he's been desperately trying to convince Enzo Maresca that he should be part of his plans. Unfortunately, but unsurprisingly, it all seems to have been futile. A fruitless attempt, as another academy graduate with a rapport with the fans is sacrificed so the faceless sporting directors can play a real-life game of Championship Manager. Chalobah has been at Chelsea for nearly 20 years. And he's given his all every single time he's pulled on the shirt. Whilst others at the club might see Chelsea as a stepping stone to something better, with Chalobah, it always appeared that he was living his dream playing for Chelsea Football Club. His debut goal against Crystal Palace and the celebrations that followed, they showed immediately what playing for Chelsea meant to him. And obviously, a bond and a rapport with the fans was built off the back of that. You know, Winstanley and Stewart, they might not care about that. Todd Boehly and Bedad Agbali, they might not care about that, but the supporters do. Fans will always care about things like that. And their treatment of Chalobah and Conor Gallagher are the latest in a long line of decisions that have been alienating the most important people at the club. The fans. It's a concept that is far too readily forgotten, but at every single club in the country, it is the fans. The fans are the most important people at the club. But the disrespect and contempt that Clearlake have shown to the fans should never be forgiven. From scrapping subsidised travel to away games to above inflation season ticket rises. Let's not forget the £5,000 tickets for the dugout club for the Man United game last season. It feels like we're in the midst of the wholesale eradication of the culture of Chelsea Football Club. Everything is about money. From the examples that I just mentioned to the pure profit monetisation of the academy. Trevoh Chalobah and Conor Gallagher, they are more than just footballers in this. They are the personification of the fight for the club's soul. And they feel like representatives of the fans against the ownership. People might think that this is an overly romantic view, that football is a results game. It's based on winning and losing. You have to sign the best players and there is no room for sentimentality. But those people are wrong. But even if we pretend that those people are right, let's actually explore the Trevoh Chalobah sales situation. He merits his place in the squad. He's clearly better than Badiashile and Axel Disasi. And he's played at a far higher level than Tosin despite being a year younger. He's played more Champions League games than Wesley Fofana and won the Club World Cup and the Super Cup. Thomas Tuchel rated him. Mauricio Pochettino rated him. And to be frank, I trust their views on football far more than I do the former Brighton scout Stewart. But maybe I'm being harsh on the sporting directors. Maybe Winstanley learnt more about football than Thomas Tuchel and Mauricio Pochettino did in their illustrious careers. In fact, what am I even talking about? Of course, Winstanley and his Polytechnic degree from Liverpool is far more clued up, far more intuitive and far more switched on when it comes to football than Thomas Tuchel and Mauricio Pochettino. The geezer's got a Polytechnic degree. No track record in football whatsoever. A Polytechnic degree. And it's a disgrace what's happening here. Look, I'm not suggesting that Trevoh Chalobah is Franz Beckenbauer, but he can play anywhere across the back four and he's clearly a very good Premier League player. In a similar vein, Euro 2024 finalist Conor Gallagher is obviously a better footballer than the Championship's Kieran Dewsbury-Hall. It's an obvious point and a fact that doesn't even need to be elaborated on. People might also talk about financial fair play and the need to balance the books. But if you prefer to discuss the finance in football rather than the romance in football, then I'm afraid you and I don't follow the same sport. And regardless anyway, we wouldn't need to balance the books by selling academy graduates if these owners didn't spunk a load of money on half a dozen average players who we will never see a profit on and a load of unproven youngsters. Chalobah should be a positive example to everyone at Cobham of where hard work and dedication can take you. A player who fought his way into the first team at Stamford Bridge, and he did it as much through application and attitude as he did natural ability. Instead, he's going to be forced out the club, and the example that he's going to show to everyone is that hard work, dedication, application and attitude ultimately means sod all to these owners. Clearlake know the price of everything and the value of nothing. I cannot for the life of me see how anything will improve whilst they remain in place as owners, and I am dreading another season of them in charge of my club. With every passing day of their reign at my club, the club disappears further and further away from the one that I know and love. Basically, this cannot continue. It's disgusting.